Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Joan Landis and welcome to today's program, the first in a series called Why It Matters. A little housekeeping. I'm going to ask everybody if they would please mute themselves. So if you could turn off your microphone and turn off your video, please. We would like to have just myself and for most of the program, our special speaker, Jill Lingard there. Thank you so much, everybody. This new series kicked off today is one where we're going to explore environmental issues and current events. And but the focus is going to be on grassroots efforts and citizen science programs that individuals just like you can get involved with and help make a change for good. So we have a fantastic speaker today, Jill Lingard, an avid paddler and environmentalist, who's going to introduce us to some of the organizations that she has led and partnered with over the years in not only defining some of Florida's blueways, but also leading in stewarding our precious natural resources. And she's also going to show us how we can get involved. Again, if the participants would please turn off their video for this program and their microphones, that would be fantastic. Jill has helped polish my paddling skills, and her passion and enthusiasm has driven my volunteer effort. So I am so excited for her to walk us through some of those steps and introduce us to some of those organizations today. A couple of things before we get started. Please check out our list of upcoming programs at Weeden Island Preserve. We have a growing list of a lot of fun programs coming up. We're building our calendar now for 2021. So check us out and check us often. You can do that at Weeden Island Preserve Facebook page or on the Weeden Island Preserve website, which is weedenislandpreserve.org, and you'll just scroll down on the front page to check out in chronological order our really cool fun lineup. Also, come out and enjoy the preserve. It's a wide open. We have miles of hiking trails, both paved, boardwalk and uneven terrain for those adventurous folks to go check out the almost 3,200 acre preserve. We have a beautiful observation tower where you can get a 360-degree view of everything Tampa Bay. And we have a fishing pier, which you can see kind of over my shoulder here. I have to give photo credit to one of our wonderful volunteers, Bill Faring, who took this photo from the observation tower at low tide, as you can see with the little shoals over there in the background. But come on out. The weather's perfect. There's a lot to do. And we also have Sweetwater Kayaks out there as our concessionaire. They will guide you on a tour. We've got a wonderful canoe and kayak trail out there. Stand-up paddleboards, canoes, and kayaks are for rent. So come out and enjoy yourselves. Now, before we start the program today, again, I would ask that everybody mute themselves. So turn off your mic and keep your video off. If you have questions during Jill's presentation, I would ask that you type them into the chat box. I'm going to be monitoring that, and I'll serve those up to Jill when she is done with her presentation. And then after the Q&A from the audience, and you can keep asking questions afterwards if you want, but Jill and I are going to kind of morph into a little bit of an informal interview question and answer format where we get to learn a little bit more about Jill and her background and experiences and thoughts and fun stuff like that. So let me give you a little bit of background on Jill, and then we will get started. Hailing from the Tampa Bay area, Jill Lingard has been paddling Florida rivers, springs, and coastlines for 25 years. She has served as president of the Florida Paddling Trails Association and is currently their vice president. She's a SpringsWatch team leader on the Weeki Wachee River for the Florida Springs Institute. She's an American Canoe Association certified Level 3 Coastal Kayak Instructor, a coach for the Florida Paddlesports Program, and a Florida Master Naturalist. Where paddling is concerned, she would say she most enjoys the intersection of recreation, learning, and stewardship. Jill, I want to welcome you today for the program and thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Gosh, I've been on the participant end of many webinars and Zoom meetings in this COVID year of 2020, but Joan and I were talking earlier, this is the first time I've been in the hot seat as speaker. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share a little bit about my experience both with paddling and segueing that into volunteer opportunities around the state of Florida. As I suspect many people on this meeting like them, I bet we have many avid and people who love to paddle Florida waterways, whether it's coastlines or inland rivers and springs. I'm the same way. That's my way of getting out there. Whoops, we lost my video. Let me see if I can get that back. There we go. I think one day it just dawned on me as I was probably out on the Itchitucknee or Santa Fe River of North Central Florida. Hey, I'm having fun out here. I wonder if I can do some good while I'm out here as well. And that led me to start to look at different kinds of water-based volunteer opportunities and nonprofits that I could assist with. And really my presentation today is just walking you through some of the organizations that I've been associated with over those 25 years of enjoying exploring Florida waterways. Some of them may spark some ideas for you. And I imagine we have some folks on this webinar as well who have other ideas and have other volunteer pursuits. And I would love to hear about those as well. So without further ado, I will jump in. The first organization I wanted to highlight is the Florida Paddling Trails Association. That's really been my focus for most of the past 5 years, which I've served as their president. I'm currently their vice president, as Joan mentioned. FPTA was founded in 2007, and I think of it as having an AT or Appalachian Trail vision for coastal paddling, because really that group's initial focus was developing the 1,515-mile Florida circumnavigational saltwater paddling trail, which is just a long-winded way of saying paddling around the entire state of Florida. This was a group that developed campsites along the way and started to organize groups of trail angels, if you will, that would help host paddlers and help them out as they cruised by their homes. Their focus really was on the coast initially. With that, they developed a mission that really has stayed true till today, developing water trails, protecting the environment along those trails, and most of all, serving as a resource and a voice for Florida paddlers. I think someone scratched their head a year or two into the founding of that organization and went, wait a minute, we've got some inland waterways as well too. People, perhaps even more people, enjoy paddling rivers, lakes, springs, creeks, you name it, throughout the state. So pretty early on in their history, FPTA grew to incorporate inland waterways as well. Florida is a big state, and I know maybe 1 or 2 people at most that could probably answer questions about every waterway in it, and both of them have worked with the Florida's Office for Greenways and Trails. The rest of us probably have some familiarity with the waterways in our own region, but for example, if I were to be asked about where to paddle in the Western Panhandle, I wouldn't have a ready answer for that since I've been out there so rarely. That's why we've just split up the state of Florida into 15 regions, and even some of those regions are split up further into segments. What FPTA has done is we have a regional director in charge of each of those regions. And if I don't know the answer to a question, I know who I can call that is an expert for that particular region. To me, this is where the power of FPTA really resides. Because so few of us can know everything about where to paddle in the state of Florida, we've got this network of experts, of local knowledge that we can tap into. And it's such a fabulous resource. Just wanted to mention here too, I don't know, we probably have people on this webinar from a variety of different spots, but Weeden Island in the Tampa Bay area is certainly within Region D in the state. Again, our foremost priority in the state of Florida is paddlers and being a resource for them. But we work with other entities, as you'll see here. We've got outfitters who are members of FPTA and other businesses as well. We work with municipalities and counties. Some of them are recognized as Blueway communities where FPTA is helping them market the paddling resources and water trails they have in their communities. Government agencies like FDEP, I mentioned the Office of Greenways and Trails, huge partners of ours. Sister organizations like the American Canoe Association, Florida Springs Institute, Florida Master Naturalist Program, some of those organizations we enjoy partnering with. And finally, the paddling clubs, dozens and dozens of those across the state of Florida. We're in touch with them on a regular basis too. Benefits of membership. First of all, I think our website is one of the most overlooked paddling resources out there possibly. I invite all of you later today after this to visit floridapaddlingtrails.com and look up the region you live in, see what we have posted there. What we've tried to do, and this will forever be a work in progress, but we've tried to essentially map the state of Florida and all of its water trails. And there's fantastic information, thanks to a wonderful volunteer named Steve Cornoyer, wonderful information about all of the paddling trails in the state broken down into those 15 regions. You can see details on many paddles, where to launch, where to take out, the options for where to go, whether there's outfitters in the area, camping opportunities, and maps to go along with that. So check that out, some really good information there. I've talked a little bit already about the network of regional paddling trail knowledge, and that can be tapped into both through our website, our quarterly newsletters, and actually we have a wonderful Facebook page too, numbering well over 16,000 members now. Love seeing the dialogue out there. We've got people asking questions about areas they're visiting for the first time, and folks who are from that area answering questions, giving good resources. It's a really good, vibrant community out there, as well as a lot of variety of other picture sharing and other topics being discussed. As an organization, FPTA supports many of the larger paddling festivals and events in the state. A couple I did want to mention. The Hidden Coast Paddling Festival celebrated its 10-year anniversary last year. Of course, a lot of things have been canceled this year due to COVID, and they were no exception. But this is a wonderful little 4-day festival that moves around year to year and typically happens somewhere along the Florida's Big Bend coast. So it's, in addition to providing a wonderful event for paddlers to enjoy getting to know those areas and the waterways, it's helping to bring ecotourism to some really small communities along the coast there. That makes a really big difference to them. You'll hear in a moment that we support a lot of youth programs in the way of paddling camps for kids. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Florida Paddlers Rendezvous is an event that happens every year. It kind of moves from paddling club to paddling club in the state as to who's hosting it. Again, COVID year, it didn't happen this year, but I'm hopeful that it'll come back in 2021. And that's another event that FPTA likes to support. And at these events, when we're able to, we're also looking to support skills training opportunities for the paddlers that gather for those events. So again, based on our mission, developing water trails, protecting the environment along those trails, and serving as a resource and voice for paddlers, here are some of the areas that FPTA regularly needs volunteers in. 15 regions, we need 15 regional directors, and we're in good shape with, I would say, 12 or 13 of those, but if you have an interest, let us know. That's an area where if you're used to paddling in a region and know it pretty well, this would be a wonderful volunteer opportunity for you to help share your expertise with others. We also have a cadre of trail keepers that sort of serve as the eyes and ears of the waterways in their area, and they kind of assist our regional directors around the state too. So that's another volunteer opportunity. I mentioned the CT is our circumnavigational paddling trail around the coast of Florida. We have trail angels across the state that live coastally that kind of keep an eye out for either section paddlers who do that trail in pieces, or we have some occasionally through paddlers who will try to do a through paddle of the entire 1,500 miles in one fell swoop. And these are folks who live coastally that just like to give them a hand, help them with logistics. You know, I've even seen some of them host a paddler for the night if the weather was foul and they were trying to get them out of danger. It really depends on what the trail angel is interested in terms of the level of support they give. I'll talk about the legacy fund in just a moment. I'm going to save that one. And that last bullet there, PET, stands for the Paddlers Environmental Toolkit Training. This was a direct outgrowth of a Florida Master Naturalist program course that FPTA's first director took, where they do a final project at the end. And what this gentleman, Hank Brooks, developed was essentially a Master Naturalist course for paddlers, and a very cram-packed one into one day. A lot of these Florida Master Naturalist courses happen over days, if not weeks. This was all in one day, but we were concentrating on the ecosystems that and wildlife, flora and fauna that paddlers see when they're out in the environment. And then how they can best be waterway stewards, be good examples of paddlers who care about the waterways they're exploring, and be a good example to others. We have about 3 hours of indoor information and training. We have lunch, and then we go out on a short paddle after that and try to put into practice some of the concepts and other things we talked about on the water. It's a really enjoyable day. Again, COVID has made our schedule of these diminish quite a bit since last February, but we're hopeful in the coming year when the pandemic sort of settles down, we hope that we'll be able to get out again to paddling clubs around the state and do more of those events. If you're part of a paddling organization, a club, or just a group of friends that enjoy doing this, and you're interested in having us come deliver a Paddlers Environmental Toolkit training program, definitely contact me and we'll see about setting that up. Okay. I mentioned the Legacy Fund. Over the past 5 years in particular, this has been a real focus of FPTA. You know, we've kind of looked around at our own organization, and I know a lot of paddling clubs are kind of the same way. We're not getting any younger. At the age of 55, I tend to be one of the younger folks in a lot of the paddling meetings that I go to. So we're recognizing that this sport really needs an infusion of youth if it's going to keep going. So that's part of what's going on here. But honestly, the other part is reaching out to kids, teaching them new skills, empowering them to be on the water and to get to know the waterways in their own backyard, getting them away from computer screens, TVs, getting them outside, enjoying themselves, and really connecting them with their waterways through kayaking, paddleboarding, or canoeing. What we're doing each year, and in our next campaign, we'll probably kick off this February and March, is raising funds, also seeking grant opportunities to help fund summer paddling camps around the state. Since we started this 5 years ago, we've assisted over a couple hundred kids go to these programs. They tend to be a week long in nature. Just wonderful, wonderful opportunities for kids to get out there, have a blast, learn how to paddle, learn more about not just the waterways, but the animals, the birds, the fish, the mangroves, whatever's in that environment, they're getting to know it. It's just a wonderful feel-good experience. I get thank you notes from these kids every year, and it just absolutely lights me up. You know, we're training not only the next generation of paddlers here, but also waterway stewards, and connecting them to water early on, I think, is an important part of that. So this has been a real labor of love for FPTA in the last few years. All right, so I'm going to leave FPTA now and jump into, with these next couple of slides, jump into another program, the Florida Paddlesports Program. This is a partnership between the American Canoe Association, ACA, and Florida State Parks. And what happens is a couple times a year in non-pandemic years, usually in the spring and in the fall, we host a 4-day day trip leader training at Lake Louisa State Park in Claremont, which is a gorgeous location for this. The lakes that we have at our that we have access to there are perfect for this kind of training. The park also has some really lovely cabins that they very kindly give to our group for free during the stay of that program. So the rate of this class, what they charge, is greatly reduced from what you would pay for just taking an ACA course generally. You'll see our next offering is scheduled for this coming May 11th through the 14th. As I mentioned, it's a day trip or kayak tour trip leader course. The whole idea behind this is this, I think the state park thinking is, we'll support this educational training opportunity for paddlers in the hope that once they've completed it, they'll be willing to lead some short kayak tours within our state park system. So it's sort of a trade-off back and forth there. You'll see some of the topics that we cover there. I have to say that I was in the inaugural class for this program, and it really just ignited a fire under me for really honing my paddling skills. We learned rescues and did strokes I didn't even know existed at that time. And it was so much fun. And it really kind of set me down the road of learning more about the craft of paddling, if you will. If this sounds like an interesting program to you, you're going to see this name a few times in this presentation. Wayne Dushkoff leads that up now, and his email address is there. By the way, I believe that we're recording this presentation, so in case you don't have anything to write with, you'll have access to these emails and the contact information that we're sharing. Can't recommend this program enough, though. It was just fabulous, and I think everybody who leaves that feels really good about all of that they've learned. Even if they don't get back to a state park to volunteer, I know many people are leading day paddles within their clubs and other organizations, and this gives them all kinds of strategies to how to do that safely, how to deal with situations that may arise in an effective manner. Really, really excellent course. Wanted to mention locally here in the Tampa Bay area, one way that course, the Paddlesports training program, has manifested of itself in our area is at Hillsborough River State Park. Again, they may be suspending these at the moment for COVID, but until then, and hopefully again in 2021, they have what we call the second Saturday paddles that are free, open to the public. The state park even provides the kayaks to people. And it's just a short interpretive paddle. I think the entire paddle might be a couple miles, if that. It's much more of a storytelling exercise about the history of that river, certainly getting into details about the flora and fauna we're seeing as we float downstream. Just a really wonderful event. And that is an absolute outgrowth of the Florida Paddlesports Program. The woman who started this, Kim Munschauer, was a graduate of that program, and she started this. Since then, a park ranger at Hillsborough River State Park, Ava Foster, has taken it over. And while Ava, I believe, leads the paddles, I'm sure she's always grateful to have a sweep or other volunteers there just to kind of keep an eye on the group as they float downstream. I helped out with this for a while a couple years ago and had a really great time doing it. It was a lot of fun. So one example of how that Florida Paddlesports Program can parlay itself into some neat volunteer opportunities within our state park system. And I know there's many more examples across the state. All right, these next few slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about SpringsWatch, which is a volunteer gig I'm still very much engaged in. This is a program that is put out by the Florida Springs Institute, and it's a citizen science water monitoring program on various spring systems throughout the state of Florida. You'll get a lot more information at the link that you see at the bottom there. You'll see here, though, I've tried to list all of the different spring systems throughout Florida where they have SpringsWatch programs now. The ones that I've highlighted, I believe, are actively seeking new volunteers now. The others are more closed groups, or they're just full right now. They may become open again. You'll see one of those is Weeki Wachee River, and that is the one I'm going to kind of concentrate on today, since that's the SpringsWatch program that I head up. And by the way, the background for my slide here is the Weeki Wachee River, probably taken on a SpringsWatch session. So this came about, before we moved to the Tampa Bay area. I actually lived in Gainesville for about 30 years. And so our go-to river to get away from it all was the Ichetucknee. If you've ever been there, it's a gorgeous spring-fed stream. And probably around 2016, 17, I began to help with their SpringsWatch team, taking various measurements, fish counts, what have you out there. Had a great time doing that. It was hard to leave. One of the harder things to leave when we moved to the Tampa Bay area was the Ichetucknee River and that program. My husband Scott and I were probably just paddling on the Weeki Wachee River shortly after that, and I probably just scratched my head and thought, gosh, I wonder if they have a SpringsWatch program here, like we used to do up in Gainesville, and contacted Bob Knight, the director of the Florida Springs Institute. And he says, no, would you like to start one? So be careful what questions you ask. Actually, this has been another labor of love. I jokingly refer to this as the most selfish form of volunteer work I do, because it puts me out on a gorgeous spring-fed run once a month. And what could be awful about that? Basically, though, the Weeki Wachee River, our monitoring began officially in August of 2018. So we've been at it a little over 2 years now. What we've done we start at the state park, which is WW1 on here, Weeki Wachee 1, and we paddle about 6.5 miles downstream to Rogers Park. And we visit 15 stations between those points and take various water quality measurements. Moving on, I think I have more details here. This kind of compiles the different kinds of things we measure and our different activities out there. You'll see a lot of gear and meters on our paddle boards there. Some of the things we're looking at, we're measuring the water temperature, the amount of dissolved oxygen in the water, which is, of course, important for plants. How light travels through the water, that's that vertical light attenuation. The amount of conductance in the water, that is often also a measure of salinity. And unlike the Ichetucknee, which is a little more landlocked, you can eventually paddle to the Gulf of Mexico, but the Ichetucknee itself doesn't reach the Gulf. Certainly the Weeki Wachee does reach the Gulf, and even when we're there at high tide, the last mile or two, you'll see those conductance measures really spike. It's really interesting. We also photograph submerged aquatic vegetation. More on that in a moment, because it looks a little different at Station 1 than it does at Station 15. And then we learned when we put all this together that there was a lake watch. This is another volunteer group that looks at water samples in lakes and rivers and springs, even though it's called Lake Watch. They don't just stick to lakes. They're analyzing samples of water across the state. And they were thrilled for us to be collecting water samples from the Weeki Wachee too. So we actually are doing activities for a couple different groups here. I call those the dry activities, if you will, barring a mishap of falling off a board or a boat. We're able to conduct those from on top of our boards or our kayaks or what have you. There are a couple of more wet activities. We actually get in the water. We have something called a Secchi disc that helps us. We basically take a tape measure with sort of a disc at the end that eventually will disappear as the other person holds the line, and that's a measure of water clarity. And between stations 2 and 3, we actually get in the water as snorkelers, towing our boats and boards, and do fish counts, which is an awful lot of fun. This is now a volunteer opportunity for which you need to have your own canoe, kayak, or paddleboard. We used to be able to rent from the state park, and you still can, but what's changed there is they're no longer shuttling, picking up people from Rogers Park at the end. They have a new takeout point now that's only about halfway down the river. So because of that, we really need to have our own paddlecraft. And you'll see here, you can do this on any of them. We actually prefer paddleboards for this because with all the gear we have, and I don't know if you can tell with Scott in the picture up there, in addition to all these meters and stuff, we have a whole bag of dive gear for the fish counts. We just find that the paddle boards are like a floating table, and it's just much easier to jump on and off and do all we need to do. But we've had folks do it in kayaks, and even recently some canoers joined us and did absolutely fine. some of the things that we've seen, these are very general observations. The pictures you see there, station 1 is that nice clear, full of grasses there from station 1, and then station 15 that looks like a mud puddle. Believe it or not, that's the same river. That's the difference between stations 1 and 15. It's spectacularly different as you go downstream. Anybody who's ever paddled this river will realize that. Some of the fish we most commonly see I've listed here. That was another really neat thing about having done this volunteer activity on the Itchitucknee and then moving to a river that feeds into the Gulf so directly. We never saw sheep's head or mangrove snapper or crevalle jack or even snook in the Itchitucknee. It was almost all bass and sunfish. A few others, but mostly those. So it's delightful to see some of these fish that I consider, wrongly so, obviously, more ocean going, but of course they come up the Weeki Wachee too. So that's been a real delight. And I feel like I'm still learning to ID many of these fish. I wanted to mention, you know, Joan and I were talking about just what a fabulous resource the Florida Springs Institute and their website is. Tons of information on SpringsWatch. But so much more information about waterways and springs around the state out there, even aside from the SpringsWatch area. Check it out. A really great resource if you're into understanding the fish that you're seeing as you paddle. They've got a wonderful fish ID set of videos out there that's just fabulous. I consult it all the time. Almost every time we come back from one of these outings, we're wrestling with what to ID a particular kind of fish, and I'm consulting those videos all of the time. They're super helpful. So check it out. Primate research. You know, I'm sure you find it shocking, but people affect the spring systems and rivers and waterways too, of course. And like a lot of springs across the state, they're very popular, especially on weekends, especially in the summer when the kids are out of school and it's hot and we all need something to do outside to cool down. So yeah, part of what this group studies is the human impacts on these waterways too. We don't get as much into that in our group. I know there's some ongoing studies that they actually count people and users daily in some of these groups. Where I feel like we get at that a little bit is more in an educational way. That sign that you see there is something that we post on our paddle boards or kayaks as we're going downstream. And when folks see us in the water or hear us shouting out numbers and, you know, somebody's writing those down on a clipboard, they'll ask questions. And we love to get questions from passersby on the river, letting them know what we're doing, letting them know what the issues, in a very, you know, general, quick way, as we don't have time for a half-an-hour discussion. But it's great to have those conversations, and we're thrilled that they're interested enough to ask, and we want them to ask. The other side of that is, while I have a volunteer list of almost 40 people now, I'm happy to always add to it. And we only ever need 4 or 5 people out on one of these sessions. We just cycle through the list. And I think the training that folks get, even if they only ever come once, they're going to leave that day having had a really amazing experience and probably tell a lot of their friends and family about what they did and what they learned. And that has really great ripple effects. So I feel like that's one way we're really getting at the primate side of this, if you will. I think that's all I'm going to say on that slide. We can come back to that information if we need to. If you're interested in volunteering, especially for the Weeki Wachee, again, there's my contact information there. By the way, that top picture is a wonderful photo of your program host today, Jill Landis. If you're interested in SpringsWatch, but Weeki Wachee isn't particularly convenient for you and want to sign up for another one, contact the Florida Springs Institute. They have a volunteer contact form right on their website that you can fill out. And they'll pair you with the program, or at least let you know which ones are taking new volunteers closest to you. And then I wanted to parse out Lake Watch, because really we're collecting data for both organizations. It may be that you would want to be a volunteer for Lake Watch and just Lake Watch, and all that involves is taking some water samples and sort of working with them a little bit to deliver them to ultimately the University of Florida is doing the final analysis, but they have collection locations all over the state of Florida. So that's another volunteer opportunity as well. All right, moving on to another group. And I'm highlighting one program here, and I'm sure these exist in counties all over the state. My experience in the last few summers, the COVID one of 2020 notwithstanding, in Manatee County, their SNAP program, Camp SNAP, which stands for Science, Nature, Adventure Program, every June, usually for 2 or 3 weeks, 4th and 5th, and then 7th and 8th graders are cycling through this program, and they hit a variety of areas of environmental focus areas. And one of the things they get to do during the day is spend an hour or two with a group of us and learn how to kayak. And I'll tell you, for a couple of years that I've done this, I would say 3/4 or more of the kids that we've worked with have never sat in a kayak in their lives. So this is a brand new experience. They've never even maybe been in a boat of any kind. Some of them are scared, some of them are excited. They're splashing around. It's usually 100 degrees in the shade, so I'm happy for them to splash around. It's just a really wonderful experience to see them really light up and learn a new skill and have fun while doing it. And we're out there and also enjoying the flora and fauna and pointing out things and having little teachable moments with what we're seeing environmentally as well. But such a blast. Again, Wayne Dushkoff, who lives in Manatee County, very graciously heads this up every year. And I know he's always excited to have more volunteers assist him with that. Can't say enough of this. I leave exhausted. It's usually so hot, but I leave with a very big smile on my face in making a real big difference in these kids' lives. I'm so glad that the camp has recognized that this is a neat and worthwhile endeavor as part of what they're trying to expose those students to. And I'm hopeful that that will come back next year. River Track, Apalachicola River Track. We travel to the Panhandle now. This is an annual fundraiser. It's their biggest fundraiser of the year for Apalachicola River Keeper. This year is the second year I've paddled the 106 miles from the Georgia border to the Gulf of Mexico over 5 days. Usually applications to be on the team of paddlers that do this, they open up in early spring, and they usually try to get that team filled out by maybe April, May. I think they usually take anywhere from 12 to 15 people. The expectation, because it is a fundraiser, is that you will be raising money for this. I think they're hoping each paddler raises a minimum of $1,000. Honestly, I was able to get that just by using social media and sending a few emails to family and friends. Lots more details at the website there. What a fun experience. Oh my goodness. The people that sign up to do this, no surprise, are just so much fun to paddle with, to hang out with for a week. The other thing that's really neat about this is in a way a true multi-day expedition. And what becomes interesting, even if you've never done it before, it's a wonderful thing to learn. You're going to be fitting your tent, your sleeping bag, your food, your water, everything you need, your camp chair, in your kayak for 5 days. And not everybody has thought through that process. You'll have a lot of help. You'll have a lot of help on both the fundraising side and expertise of others who have done these kinds of trips. But we're fully contained and have all of our stuff for 5 days. And it's really neat to do that. And basically we're camping, as you see that middle picture there, we're camping on sandbars as we go down the river. This year's challenge, if you recall, we had a lot of either hurricanes or tropical systems hit the Panhandle. Poor Pensacola is still digging out, I think. This fall just hit the Panhandle 2 or 3 or 4 times. So the river was higher than usual, gave us a wonderful current. We didn't have to work real hard to make those miles each day, which was nice because you're paddling upwards of 20 plus miles a day. What was neat about that, or what was challenging about that, is the sandbar you see there is an exceptional one. Many of them were underwater this year, so the camping got a little touch and go here and there. And again, due to weather, this year's event kind of had to be chopped in half, with the first 2 days happening as scheduled, and then we did the final 3 days in November. The team that leads this does a fabulous job of training folks, of supporting them and just keeping the whole event very safe and fun. I can't speak highly enough for Apalachicola River Trek. I would do it every year if I could. I don't want to torture people in my life with fundraising every year, so I usually take a few years off, but this is a really wonderful event. And I'd be happy to answer more questions about it. I just finished this year's up in early November and had a great time. All right. And finally, this is my final slide. You know, again, I've highlighted some of the organizations and groups I've worked with and some of the activities I've done. You all probably have some ideas that I hope we hear about. One of the most powerful things that I think you can do, and that I still occasionally have the joy to do, is introduce a friend or family member to a Florida waterway for the first time. Maybe introduce them to kayaking for the first time. You know, people don't generally fight to protect what they don't know about. And being a part of that person's first experience on a beautiful Florida waterway is just so enjoyable. It's magic. It's magic for them, and you're being a part of that, and you're showing them what's at stake if we don't get real careful here and do a better job of being stewards of these waters. The picture we have here, not to beat a dead horse, but is the Weeki Wachee River. That's my brother Jack. Yes, we have a Jack and Jill in my family. Yeah, that's him in the front and his wife behind us, and they've never been on that waterway before, and we're just blown away, and it was just such a wonderful day. I think just that is an amazingly powerful thing that you can do that helps Florida waterways by the ripple effects that it has, and just the powerful experience that people are left with when they experience what some of us may take for granted because we get out there on a regular basis. Look for groups that are doing waterway cleanups, whether that's a formal organization or a paddling club, or just a group of your friends that get out there and enjoy doing that on your own. That's always a nice way to certainly make a immediate difference in the waterways that you're exploring. And also keep an eye out for citizen science opportunities. Certainly I've mentioned at least one with the Florida Springs Institute today. I know FWC has opportunities, and I'm sure other groups, Tampa Bay Watch. There's probably other groups doing much more there that are hungry for paddlers to get out there and help be the eyes and ears of the waters that they've been charged with protecting. So I think with that, I might be done with my slides. Joan? She's probably unmuting herself and getting her picture back. There she is.
My little video didn't want to come back up. Wow. Thank you, Jill. That was fabulous. That was such a nice overview and kind of a more of an intimate look at some of the organizations that I know you know well, and but it's easy to miss. There are a lot of different entities, a lot of agencies, a lot of ways, good causes, and great organizations for people to get involved in. Another shout out on the Florida Paddlesports Program. I mean, like you said, I mean, for any of you out there that are interested, it's a very inexpensive way to be able to get sophisticated training in a super low key type of environment in a beautiful state park. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that state park existed until I participated in that program.
I didn't either. And the times of years that you teach that program are, some of the best to be out there. So can't say enough about that. And then to share your experience on the Hillsborough River, Ava Foster, who is the, I think she's the park services manager, is a delight. And Jill trained her recently, along with some of her fellow park service people.
That was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a hoot. She's heading up that program. I volunteered there too in the past. And so check in with Hillsborough River State Park, check in with Ava Foster to see what they're cooking up for 2021. Hopefully they'll be able to do that. One other thing before we segue into our question and answer, we don't have any questions from the audience at this moment. If by chance you do have any questions as we continue on, feel free to type them into the chat, and we'll get them when we can. But there are also local paddling organizations that involve themselves in various environmental activities, as well as sort of honing skills and so forth.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little bit about the Tampa Bay Sea Kayaking?
Yes, thank you for asking that, because I love to plug this paddling club. It's such a great group. Tampa Bay Sea Kayakers, if you go to tbsk.com or org, try either one, or just Google Tampa Bay Sea Kayakers. This is a group of a couple hundred paddlers in the Tampa Bay area, leading day trips. You know, in a normal year, you would have the opportunity to paddle with this group sometimes 3 to 4 times a week. Certainly that took a hit this year, but we're crawling back onto the water slowly in a COVID-safe manner. And certainly hopeful that 2021 will bring us better things. And I think we've all recognized the health benefits of being outside. We just need to be careful how we interact in getting ourselves outside. For example, the paddles that we're hosting right now through this group, we're working with locations that don't require a shuttle, sort of an out and back paddle, so that we're not cooped up in vehicles together. Again, hopefully as the months go on here and we get a vaccine, we can go back to more normal times. Another way I'm volunteering with this group, I'm starting to lead, with the help of other instructors, a monthly training opportunity for TBSK members. And they've been doing this for months. I'm just starting to take that role over now, but for the, you know, it's funny, I mentioned I lived in Gainesville. When we got the word that we'd be moving to the Tampa Bay area, the first thing I did was join TBSK, because I knew paddlers would be my people. And I think that discovering a new community and getting to know this new place through its waterways is just fun and wonderful. And I knew I'd meet people that had lived there for years and would know the secrets and show me some amazing things. And I haven't been disappointed. So great group, wonderful paddlers, wonderful people, training opportunities. When COVID lets us, they'll be back to actually meeting in person once a month, probably. That used to happen at Bill Jackson's in the Pinellas Park, St. Pete area. And they would host interesting speakers from the area every month too. So really, really great organization. Can't say enough for them.
That's fantastic. And you bring up a good point, Jill, because once you get involved, once one steps their little toe into the community, I mean, it is a super nice group of people. They tend to be like-minded individuals who want to protect the resource that they love. And you know, one thing can tend to lead to another, which, as a matter of fact, kind of leads to our first question. So I'll just get into that right now. You know, I think the passion that you have, not only for paddling, but for our resources, our waterways, our blueways, and really the nitty gritty about keeping these resources clean and safe and available comes across. And so I'm really excited about that. There are many in the audience who share your passion for our natural resources and for protecting them. But they might not know how to get started. Maybe not necessarily the paddle craft part of it, but you know, how do you take that first step to volunteer? So I want you to, if you would, sort of share with us what you can about the process that you went through in going from a person who enjoys paddling to getting as involved and ultimately leading some of these organizations. And then, you know, answer for us what your best advice to paddlers would be for those who want to get involved.
Sure. Gosh, where to start? You show up. It sounds so simple, but when you hear about an organization maybe doing a waterway cleanup, show up and show up the next time they do it, and keep showing up and talk to people and find out from folks, is there a volunteer need that isn't being met? You know, most of the groups that I've talked about today are on shoestring budgets. In the case of FPTA, it's a completely volunteer organization. We wouldn't run, it wouldn't exist without volunteers. So when I interact with people who are consistently showing up, helping out, are fired up about paddling and the environments they paddle through, and they have a little bit of time to devote, heck yeah, I want to work with them and get them busy and give them a role within our organization. And that was the experience I had as a newcomer as well. You know, the waterway cleanup bit, my husband and I, when we paddled the Santa Fe, the Itchitoki, the Swanee River, North Central Florida rivers, we would regularly just pick up garbage bottles, whatever, as we paddled, just because it's there. Shortly after that, we heard about an organization called Current Problems that hosted cleanups all around North Central Florida, including coordinating cleanups of the entire Swanee River from Georgia border to the Gulf. So gosh, let's see what they're doing. Let's show up to one of their cleanups, or 10 or 20. And again, it was just as you get to know people, you get talking with folks, you know, oh gosh, they need a newsletter and no one's doing that. And oh, I can write a little bit. Maybe I can help with that. Well, the next thing you know, I'm taking on that role. Now you've got to watch it. You can volunteer yourself to death. You know, you've got to manage and have a plan for what amount of time do I have to devote to various causes so that you don't burn out. But yeah, I think that most of the groups and organizations that we've chatted about these last few minutes would be hungry and grateful for any of the help anyone was interested in giving them. And it all just kind of starts with maybe checking out what they do on their website, finding out when their next activity is, when there's a call for volunteers, whether that's a cleanup or some other kind of event, answer that call and find out more about it and talk to people and see what the needs are. And I'd be shocked if it didn't lead to more in-depth types of volunteer experiences.
That is a fantastic answer. You know, I mean, just show up.
Just show up. I know that's crazy, but well, isn't there a saying, half of life is showing up? Yeah, probably 90% of life is showing up for these organizations.
Absolutely. You know what? Let's grab, we've got a couple questions from the audience. One of them is, let's see. Oh, and I don't know. So as a beginner, let's see, Deborah, as a beginner, is there a resource about buying a paddleboard or kayak? I have been canoeing since I was a kid.
Sure. Yes, it's called the Facebook group of the Florida Paddling Trails Association. I'm sure there are other possibilities there. The one I'm very familiar with, I see this question being asked and answered in that group almost daily. Put that question out to this group and you'll have lots of answers and different options for you to check out. It can also be a group that is, you know, maybe somebody is outgrown or onto the newest, latest paddleboard or kayak and wants to sell the one they currently have that is perfectly fine, but they want something else. So you might even make connections with people that are looking to sell a secondhand kayak or paddleboard in good condition there. Also on the Facebook page, and again, when you go to Facebook, just in the search, go Florida Paddling Trails Association, you'll find our group. You have to join it. We'll let you in and you'll be able to post. There's also a search option within that Facebook group where you could write advice for a new paddleboard and get all of the conversations that we've ever had on that topic. So that's a really great resource for people looking for new kinds of gear of any kind of, whether it's canoe, kayak, paddleboard, paddles, PFDs, you name it, anything to do with paddling.
Fantastic. And also, you know, getting out on the water.
Yeah, and I don't know where this person who asked the question, where they live, but there may be a paddling club in their region. Again, these are usually great groups to learn from because they'll be paddlers of various levels. and years of experience in there that can offer tips to folks who are newer to it. Another great resource on FPTA's Facebook page is we've got a listing of the paddling clubs throughout the state that have joined FPTA, so you can kind of, if you're looking for one, you should be able to find it through our website.
Fantastic. All right, another question from the audience we've got from Michael. We are full-time RVers who will be in Tampa area until mid-January. Beautiful. And then moving around the state of Florida. And then, I guess the question is, are you interested in short-term volunteer opportunities? Or would there be, can you pop in and pop out, so to speak?
Possibly. That would be a great question to follow up with maybe after this presentation to see what kinds of activities this person is interested in engaging in. It would depend on the organization and the kinds of events and activities they might be hosting. But yeah, that might take us kind of sleuthing around in the Tampa Bay region to see what's going on in the next couple months there. Okay.
All right. Now, would it be okay for people to contact you directly, Jill?
Absolutely. And again, I'll put it out there verbally, but I think one or two of the slides had my email on there. It's just my name, Jill.Lingard, Lingard, @gmail.com. Feel free to contact me. And again, even if I don't know the answer, I usually, with the network of connections I have in paddling in Florida, you usually can connect you with who does.
Yep. Yep. Jill's a great resource. Fantastic resource. Okay. Let's move on to another question between you and I, well, for the audience, obviously, but as a fellow Florida Master Naturalist, I would like to know how being a Florida Master Naturalist may color your approach to paddling, and how the Florida Master Naturalist program has made a difference to you when you're leading a group on the water.
Oh, it's made all the difference in the world. People come to paddling for different reasons. There are folks that love to do long expeditions and bag their miles. There are folks that race. I'm one of the soak up the environment people. I'm out there for peace and just the beauty of being, look at the photo behind me. I'm out there for that. So I've always been interested in understanding more about where I was, whether that's, what's going on in the water below me or what's going on in the trees around me, the fish, the bird, whatever, all of it. So taking Florida Master Naturalist courses has really enriched just my paddling experience, because I now look at the environment in a completely different way. I look at ecosystems in a different way. I understand them more. Still learning. This will be a lifelong learning experience, but it's just keyed me into certain things in the environment that I'm sure escaped my notice before I started paddling. So I can't recommend the program enough. And I don't know if they're on this webinar, but we've got at least a couple instructors in the area who are just fabulous. Brian and Jean from Sensing Nature will hopefully be back to offering Florida Master Naturalist courses after the COVID lull in the coming year, and they're just fantastic. In addition to learning about the various issues that they cover, the other part of it I love is that you do field work. You get out to parks and reserves and preserves that, again, being a little bit newer to the area, I didn't even know these places existed. So that was fantastic too. When I'm leading others on a tour, whether it's just a day trip for Tampa Bay sea kayakers, or just hanging out with my sister on a waterway for the first time, I find myself pointing out birds and fish and kinds of plants. And oh my goodness, I've fallen in love with mangroves to the extent that I need medication at this point. But it brings it more to life for them too. So hopefully I'm a more interesting paddler to be with too, because I am kind of almost obnoxiously pointing out stuff in the environment that they then get interested in. And then finally, in a much more direct way, I mentioned the Paddler's Environmental Toolkit Training Program earlier, which was a direct outgrowth of a particular class that someone took within the Florida Master Naturalist Program. And we've kind of done a Master Naturalist course light, if you will, but really keyed it to paddlers and what they see and experience and how they can be most effective in the environments that they're in, whether it's being good waterway stewards, whether it's reporting certain things they find out there and how to do that, really empowering them to be all that they can, do it all they can to protect Florida waterways. So that was a direct outgrowth of that program. So I'm very grateful to it. I've taken the core modules to get the Florida Master Naturalist designation, but I'll keep taking the elective courses too till they stop offering them, because they're always such an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is you want to know a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and yeah, having that background and having those resources are fantastic as well. We're speaking about the University of Florida Master Naturalist Program, which you can Google and find out. And again, we have our wonderful local resources, Sensing Nature, with Gene Murphy and Brian Lane, that also partner with Weeden Island Preserve and do fantastic programs for us. So, and you can look for their programs coming up, starting again in January through for the next several months. So that's a great tie into Weeden. Jill, I'm fortunate enough to be on your ever burgeoning list of volunteers on the Weeki Wachee, and I personally could say it's a great way to spend the day. But I want you to walk us through, if you would, what it's like to be a SpringsWatch volunteer. Can you take us through a day in the life
Sure.
on Wachee?
It's a great question, because it's, I think, an amazing, fun day, but it's a long day, and it's not for everybody. We are probably up around between 5 and 6 a.m. and usually hitting the road, because Weeki Wachee, I live in Riverview, so it's a good hour, half, 3/4 drive from where I live. And certain times of the year, it's pretty important that we get to the state park right when it opens, because it's going to be that crowded. And we want to try to do as much of our work as we can before the people explode on that waterway. So to do that, we're hitting the road generally 6:30 a.m. Get to the park, we calibrate instruments, get our boats together, launch. Usually we have a group at no more than 5 or 6 paddlers is all we need on a given day. We are conducting readings of various meters at 15 different stations. So while your typical human being could hit the water, get to Rogers Park in a couple hours without even trying, we're probably not going to reach Rogers Park till about 2 in the afternoon, simply because we're stopping at each of these 15 stations. Also, between a couple of them, between 2 and 3, we're getting in wetsuits and donning snorkels, masks, and fins, and jumping in the water and doing a fish count between those stations, which slows us down further. But what a wonderful reason to slow down. And all of that takes a little bit more time. Also collecting water samples at 3 of those stations for Lake Watch, doing the Secchi disc readings at 3 stations. Also, I should mention the Lake Watch activity we do actually has us paddling out closer to the Gulf beyond Rogers Park for the last water sample that we have to get. That usually has us back at Rogers and finally either shuttling back to our cars or getting our vehicles right there if we've pre-staged them. If we can get back in vehicles between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, we're doing great, which would put my husband and I home around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a long day. It's a really wonderful, fun, long day, but you'll be tired. I sleep really good after a SpringsWatch day. And it's a lot of fun, but it's a long one. I will also mention, I think I already did mention that people need their own kayak, canoe, or paddleboard now because of the state park situation and their new takeout point. The good thing about that is we're shuttling ourselves. In a COVID world, I think it's better for us to be twosies and threesing it in a vehicle versus on a bus with 30. I like that a little bit better. And I like that we can pre-stage vehicles at Rogers Park. So in essence, most of us are paddling back to our vehicle, and that makes us more efficient. At the end of the day, you just load your boat or board and skedaddle. So that's kind of what it looks like. Now I've got extra work to do as sort of the team leader. I'm processing the samples of water we got to give Lake Watch what they need. I'm taking, I'm just taking all our data and getting it into a format that the Springs Institute can use, including the photos that I take, getting them, in files that they can read and use. So it usually takes me an extra day beyond the SpringsWatch day just to get all of that organized and to the people that need what they need. But a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Thank you for, keeping it real. It's a beautiful day. And I have to say, Jill's a great coordinator. So if you do reach out and want, express an interest in doing it and you end up becoming one of the lucky volunteers, she will, tune you in on the park sometimes makes changes to things, and she will always stay apprised of the weather conditions and so on. And, in some cases we've had to, you've had to call trips because of our.
Certainly, yeah. And the summer months are tricky because we can count on an afternoon thunderstorm practically. You can set your watch by it. And while rain doesn't bother me, lightning bothers me a lot. And, I'm not going to put anybody in danger in terms of weather. So that there's been times we've had to cancel, usually for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again,
the other thing I'll just remind folks of, back to your question on first steps to getting involved, the whole Weeki Wachee program came about because I just went, wonder if this river has one. Because I've been involved in the one on the edge of Tuckney, and lo and behold, the folks in charge of the whole program were like, do it. So again, it's just having an idea, following up with somebody who might be in a position to go, great idea, let's make it happen.
Yeah, that, so all the organizations that you talk about, I mean, if there are people out there that have another idea or other ideas about things that that information that can be collected, different ways to conserve our resources, to put to other like-minded people together in that fashion, bring it.
Yep.
It's open. And again, the SpringsWatch Institute website is a great resource as well, not only for paddlers and not only for SpringsWatch volunteers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, those fish videos.
I love them. I know, they're fantastic.
They have a whole series of fish videos that show you how to identify particular fish, different field ID marks on the fish. They show you films of the fish in the water, in their environment. And then they also compare and contrast that fish to others that you might confuse them with.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, we probably all own these guidebooks that have gorgeous pictures of fish, but they never look like that in the water. Or you're swimming above them.
Yeah.
And so they don't even, the nice lateral view, you don't even get it. So yeah, the Springs Institute has thought of that, and their videographers understood that because they were SpringsWatch volunteers too, struggling to ID fish. Yeah. So they've really done, they understood their audience. And again, it helps us as SpringsWatch volunteers, but it's just great information for anybody.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. Well, so we know that our waterways have many challenges, and most of them are driven by, our impact on them and the changes that we've made in the landscape, the fragmentation, and just our sheer, recreational impact. I'm curious, Jill, in the 25 years that you've been paddling the state, have you noticed, any changes over that period of time? And
so this could be another presentation. I think just to sort of encapsulate my thoughts, I will say that in general, I see less visible garbage on waterways. I think we are making strides on, hey, throwing garbage, your water bottle or whatever, away in the stream is not cool. I think there's also more groups doing waterway cleanups, which is great. I hate that it's necessary, but I think there's many more of those groups. So I think that ethic is growing, and I'm grateful for that. What is going in the other direction, unfortunately, is the kind of water pollution you can't easily pick up or see. And that's more insidious runoff from, urban runoff, from leaky sewer systems, or septic tanks. I don't know if it's such a big deal in the Weeki Wachee area because that's more of an urban environment, but agricultural runoff in the Swanee valleys, for example, huge. The nitrate and phosphorus pollution that a lot of these waterways are experiencing. We can't see it. The water looks beautiful still, but it's definitely there, and the numbers are not going in a direction that is healthy for water. So understanding that, holding governmental agencies, holding their feet to the fire to really take actions that truly protect and restore waterways is an ongoing battle in the state of Florida. And that certainly has not been getting better since I've been paddling, sadly.
Well, tell us about what gives you the most joy in volunteering then.
First of all, just being out there. Like I said, a lot of this is a really selfish form of volunteering because I get to be in settings like the one you see behind me right now. I enjoy introducing other people to them and seeing them light up for the first time. That gives me huge joy. And just educating folks when I can. That feels like I'm doing something that may make a difference. So feeling useful, I guess. Taking something that I already love to do and finding a way to make it useful beyond just the doing of it, if you will.
Well, it shows, it really does. The passion, the love of being out there and interacting with other people and helping their experience be the best that it
By
can.
the way, I think that water quality, water in general, is something that is such a uniting force. We're in a day and age of us and them and Democrats and Republicans and fake news and this is something that can unite everybody. I think people of all political stripes and backgrounds share a love of water, and it's something that should cut across all of those divisions. And we need everybody from all backgrounds to be working on it and care about it. We may come to it from different ideologies and backgrounds, but we're all needed in the solution. I'll just put that out there too.
Great point. No, thank you very much. Okay, well, I think we have answered everybody's questions. I have one more for you. I'm not going to let you off the hook until we get to hear what you think your next big adventure is going to be.
Oh dear. This year was supposed to be the year that I finished the Appalachian Trail. So my first answer to this is a non-paddling one. I attempted a through hike of the Appalachian Trail in 2006, knocked off about 1,850 miles before going home with a stress fracture on my hip. Since then, I've been slowly knocking out the rest of the miles, and I have 100 left to do in Maine. And that was going to be on my to-do list for this past October, September, October, and of course COVID had its way with that. So maybe the coming year will allow me to finally check off this item on my massive to-do list. Really though, in thinking about this, I think this last year of quarantining, and certainly nobody's flying anywhere that I know of anyway, of having to stay closer to home, the upside of that, living in Florida, is wow, what a state we have to explore. And it's really, because we're not taking long trips, forced us to really get better acquainted with our own backyards a little bit, our own local waterways or regional waterways. So I don't have a particular next big adventure, but for the coming few months, I'd be thrilled if it just involved more paddling of areas I haven't explored yet that are in my own state, because Florida has so many options there. I think I could keep paddling every day for the rest of my life and not see every waterway there is in the state of Florida. So that seems like a challenge to me that I'd be happy to take on in the near future. It's just getting to know Florida more, and how lucky we are to live in a state that has that kind of the watery playground for us. I really feel very, very grateful for that.
Wow, what a fantastic answer. And What a fantastic presentation. I really want to thank you so much, Jill. These organizations and agencies and opportunities are front and center to you, but they, may not, people in the audience may not have ever heard of them before. And as you have illustrated for us, they're great resources, not only for paddlers, but for all Floridians in many ways. And so, through this, we're able to understand that, put it together, and kind of maybe poke our toes into the water of volunteering and helping to give back. It's such a wonderful thing. So I want to thank you for taking the time and for, showing the passion and the way for people to enjoy and preserve our wonderful resources. So thank you so much.
Pleasure, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, Jill. And for the audience, I want to thank you for tuning in to our kickoff of the brand new series, Why It Matters, and join us for our upcoming programs at Weeden Island Preserve Facebook page. And take care of yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.